Nowadays, basically every mega corporation is subject to a mountain of criticism. I mean, we can just walk down the list. Apple, overpriced products. Saudi Aramco, pollution. Microsoft, OS monopoly. Google, data collection. Amazon, underpaid workers. Berkshire Hathaway can't even beat the market. Tesla, an Elon Musk fan club. United Health Group, a massive... Wait, who even are these people? They're worth roughly $500 billion, but not many even know about their existence. Even the ones that are familiar with the United Health Group only know them as an insurance provider, and often don't realize that they're literally the 8th largest company in the world. And as we've discussed extensively on this channel, the companies that are most dangerous are rarely the ones that are front-facing like Google or Apple. Usually, the worst companies are the background companies that no one ever talks about, like Johnson & Johnson and Nestle. United Health Group may seem harmless at first glance, as they simply sell insurance, something that's required to get decent healthcare in America. But if you take a closer look, you'll see that United Health is no exception to the rule, as they've built their fortune on the bloods of tens of millions of people. In fact, many would even argue that United Health is the root behind everything that's wrong with the modern medical industry. And while this may seem like a bold claim, their actions honestly speak for themselves. I mean, just think about this. There's only two ways that an insurance company can make money: maximize premiums and minimize payouts. Maximizing premiums itself could be argued to be unethical when dealing with health. But the real evilness comes along with minimizing payments. To minimize payments, insurance companies work very hard to dissuade you from having to cash in. When this means dissuading you from smoking or drinking, that's a good thing. But when this means dissuading you from going to the hospital or getting treatment, well, that's a new low even for these corporations. So here's the truth behind the $500 billion giant that no one ever questions. One of the biggest problems with United Health is that their business is fundamentally flawed. First of all, have you ever wondered why people don't just pay for health insurance themselves? We pay for our own car insurance, our own home insurance, our own life insurance, and any other type of insurance that we decide to get except for health insurance. Unless you're self-employed or work as a contractor, chances are your employer pays for your health insurance. If you were to ask company owners, they'll say something like, "We care about our employees' health and think that all of them should have access to good healthcare." But that's a lot of BS. In reality, companies offering health insurance is a rather new invention, and it was by no means designed to take care of employees. The origins of company-sponsored health insurance can actually be traced back to World War II. At the time, the economy was booming thanks to the war, but inflation was also booming. So while companies were willing to increase salaries to attract better talent, the government did not want this. They feared that rising wages would just worsen the inflation problem. So they passed the 1942 Stabilization Act, which literally made it illegal for companies to raise wages. Under normal circumstances, this would be a godsend for employers. But with so many young men and women off to war, they were struggling to find good workers. So they started offering benefits such as health insurance. Very quickly, employer-sponsored healthcare plans became the standard. And while this seemed like a good thing at the start, it didn't take long for employers and health insurance providers to take advantage of this. You see, large employers quickly figured out that this was a great means of employee retention. They knew that smaller companies and individuals could never strike as good deals with health insurance providers. So naturally, larger employers would generally always have the better health insurance. This strongly dissuaded employees from switching to smaller companies or starting their own business, even if everything else made sense. I mean, how many times have you heard about people staying at their crappy corporate or government jobs because of the health insurance? According to Gallup, that's 1 in 6 US workers, and that's no accident, it's by design. Meanwhile, this was a massive win for health insurance providers as well. Sure, they were giving big companies massive discounts, but this significantly reduced their workload. They no longer had to convince tens of millions of people to purchase their plans. Instead, they just had to convince a few hundred companies, and they would essentially have a monopoly over the entire market. It also helped that employers were generally complacent customers. Their goal usually wasn't to get a good deal or a fair price. they just cared about getting a better price than smaller companies and individuals. And as long as that was the case, employers were happy, which made it easy for these insurance providers to continuously jack up prices. Aside from constantly rising prices, it's in the insurance provider's best interest that you cash in as little of the benefits as possible. And over the decades, they've gotten extremely crafty with how they accomplish this. One of their go-to methods is networks. If you're not from the US, you're probably not familiar with networks. But essentially, what it means is that just because you have health insurance does not mean that you can go to any hospital. Newer legislation has made this better by basically making it illegal for hospitals to straight up deny you healthcare. But it's still in your best financial interest to go to hospitals that are within your network. This brings up the question though. When you or your employer is paying tens of thousands of dollars per year for health insurance, why in the world are you limited to certain hospitals? Well, the answer is so that United Health Group can make more money. Obviously, it's cheaper to partner with a select number of hospitals instead of covering all hospitals, but there's more to this than just that. By partnering with a select number of hospitals, insurance providers are able to get an even bigger discount on how much they pay out. Here's the thing, when United Health Group exclusively partners with someone like St. David's Medical Group, St. David's is basically getting a monopoly over all of United Health Group's customers. This is obviously extremely valuable, and that's why St. David's would be willing to give United Health a massive discount. But this is not the only way in which United Health saves money either. By reducing the number of supported hospitals, insurance providers are able to reduce the frequency of hospital visits. If people could use the hospital right next door, they're obviously going to visit much more frequently than if they had to drive 10 miles to the closest hospital in their network. Something else that health insurance providers leverage to further dissuade hospital visits is large deductibles. If you're not familiar with deductibles, it's basically the amount of money that you have to pay out of pocket before any health insurance kicks in. The average deductible for bronze plans is a whopping $6,921. And it's not just lower income folks that are opting for these low tier plans either. Even people who can comfortably afford the higher tier plans often choose the lower tier plans because here's the thing. Would you rather pay $3,000 per month and have no deductible, or pay $1,000 per month and pay $7,000 the one time you get sick? For most people who are relatively healthy, the answer is the second option regardless of their financial situation. And when even people with money think that your most comprehensive plans are a ripoff, there's clearly something really wrong. So far, most of the shortfalls that we've discussed are applicable to the entire health insurance industry. And as the largest health insurance provider in the world, United Health Group is by far the worst offender. For example, do you know when United Health Group had their most profitable quarter ever? It was actually during the second quarter of 2020, when the pandemic was at its absolute peak. That quarter, United Health Group profited $6.6 billion, which is double their usual profits. At first glance, this might be a bit confusing, but when you think about it, it makes sense. First of all elective medical procedures were paused during this time period, so United Health did not have to pay out any of those. On top of this, even people who needed medical attention were wary of going to the hospital due to fears of catching COVID. And lastly, a lot of people who didn't already have health insurance got health insurance for obvious reasons. When you put all of this together, you end up with the most lucrative quarter ever during the worst health crisis in modern history. Yeah, I don't think I have to explain why that's so wrong on so many levels. Given that they make all this money, you would hope that they at least pay out honestly when the time comes, but that's not the case either. United Health regularly blackmails hospitals to pay their doctors less. For example, near the beginning of the pandemic, United Health terminated their contracts with anesthesiology and neonatal practices in 4 states. And the reason for this was that the physicians at these providers were making too much money. Talk about the irony. While United Health refuses to be overcharged themselves, they're happy to overcharge the government. Now, this may come as a surprise as a lot of people promote Medicare as the solution. But what you don't realize is that private companies like United Health are actually the ones that control Medicare as well. You see, back in the 1990s, Medicare was facing a $13 trillion funding gap, so Congress decided to privatize a part of Medicare. Essentially, the government would simply foot the bill, and the private companies are the ones that would actually take care of all the insurance stuff. I don't think you'd be surprised to hear that these companies use this opportunity to rip off the government to the absolute max. For example, one of the strategies that they used was over-exaggerating clients' conditions. This way, the insurance companies could charge the government large premiums even though the client was actually low risk. According to a whistleblower, United Health was regularly overcharging the government by $3,000. And I think this leaked email tells you everything you need to know. Really go after the potential risk scoring, specifically those with huge dollar opportunities. Once this information surfaced, the US did go ahead and sue United Health Group, and this will probably end in a ruling that favors the US. But if we're being honest, the US is going to fine them like $5 or $10 billion, despite losing tens of billions, if not even over $100 billion. After hearing things like this, people often trend towards the idea of universal healthcare, and maybe that is the solution. But the truth is that that's unlikely to happen anytime soon. So the best thing we can do in the meantime is try to take control of the situation. According to another whistleblower, the thing health insurance companies fear most is a single-payer plan. The reason they fear single-payer plans so much is because it threatens their monopoly and control. So maybe the key is to simply take ownership of our health insurance just like we do with every other type of insurance. Certain companies already allow for this. Netflix, for example, offers company-provided insurance if you want it. But you can also choose to refuse it and instead take a $15,000 health insurance credit that you can use anywhere you want. If more employees prefer this option, I suspect that more companies would start offering this. And this may just be what we need to break the health insurance monopoly. But that's just what I think. Are you a fan of universal healthcare? Comment that down below. Also, drop a like if you hope United Health Group's monopoly crumbles to the ground. And of course, consider checking out our Discord community to suggest future video ideas, and consider subscribing to see more questions logically answered. But until then, I'm Hari, and I'll see you guys on the next one.